I was standing in front of Monet's Water Lilies at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, fighting back tears that had nothing to do with the painting's beauty and everything to do with the letter in my purse from my father, who'd written to tell me he was proud of me just 3 days before his heart attack, when a man beside me said quietly, "The way you're looking at that painting, like it's breaking your heart and healing it at the same time, that's exactly how I've been feeling about it for the past 5 minutes." His voice was gentle and careful, like he understood that sometimes strangers in museums are holding more pain than they know what to do with. I turned to look at him, maybe 43 or 44, with kind gray eyes and the sort of thoughtful presence that suggested someone who spent a lot of time observing the world carefully. He was standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, something clean and understated, and when our eyes met, I saw something that looked like recognition, as if he'd been waiting his whole life to find someone else who could see what he saw in that particular arrangement of paint and light. "I'm sorry," I managed, wiping my cheek with the back of my hand. I didn't realize I was being so obvious about having an emotional breakdown in public. Before I continue this, hit that subscribe button. I post one real story every single day. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'm always curious who my stories are reaching. "Don't apologize," he said, his attention shifting between my face and the painting. "Art is supposed to make us feel things. The fact that you're letting yourself feel them instead of pretending to be above it all, that's rare." "You sound like you speak from experience." "I do. I've been coming to look at this painting every few months for the past 3 years, and you're the first person I've seen have a genuine emotional response to it." "What brings you back to it?" The man, who I now noticed was wearing a wedding ring, though something about the way he carried himself suggested it might be more complicated than that, was quiet for a moment, considering how much truth to share with a stranger. "It reminds me of someone I loved," he said finally. "Someone who could see beauty in things other people overlooked." Past tense. Very past tense. We stood in silence for a moment, both looking at the painting, but clearly thinking about other things. There was something about the way he held himself, careful but not closed off, sad but not bitter, that made me want to understand his story. "I'm Elena," I said, surprising myself by offering my name to someone I'd just met in the middle of an emotional crisis. "James." "And Elena, can I ask you something?" "Sure. What were you thinking about when you were looking at the painting?" "You don't have to tell me, but you looked like you were somewhere else entirely." I thought about deflecting, giving him some safe answer about appreciating Impressionist technique. Instead, I found myself telling the truth to this stranger who seemed to understand that museums could be places for processing grief as much as admiring art. "My father died last week," I said. "Sudden heart attack. And before I left home to come back to San Francisco, my mom gave me a letter he'd written to me that he never got to send." "What did it say?" "That he was proud of me for following my dreams even when they seemed impractical. That he knew leaving home to become a writer was scary, but he believed I was brave enough to make it work." I looked back at the painting. He said he hoped I'd always remember that beauty was worth pursuing, even when it was difficult. "And this painting reminds you of that?" "This painting reminds me that he was right. That there's something about beauty, real beauty, not just pretty things, that makes pain bearable. That makes life worth living even when it's hard." James was quiet for a long moment, and I watched him process what I'd said. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was." "What about you? Who did this painting remind you of?" "My wife. Ex-wife, technically, but she died before the divorce was finalized, so I'm not sure what that makes me." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you. It's been 3 years, but some days it still feels like yesterday." "What happened?" "Cancer. Pancreatic." She had 6 months from diagnosis to death, and we spent most of that time fighting about everything except what actually mattered. "What were you fighting about?" "The fact that I'd filed for divorce 6 months before her diagnosis. The fact that I wanted out of our marriage because I felt like we'd grown into different people who couldn't make each other happy anymore." "That must have been impossibly complicated." "It was. I couldn't leave her while she was dying, but I also couldn't pretend our marriage was something it wasn't. So we lived in this strange limbo where we were taking care of each other, while also acknowledging that we weren't meant to be together. I studied James's profile as he spoke, noting the careful way he chose his words, the weight he seemed to carry in his shoulders. And this painting was important to her? I gave her a print of it when I proposed. We were here, actually, in this museum, and she stood in front of this exact painting for 20 minutes just absorbing it. She said it reminded her that love could be beautiful even when it was complicated. And now you come here to remember her? I come here to try to understand whether I made the right choice. Whether I was brave for being honest about our relationship not working, or cruel for giving up on something that might have been worth fighting for. What would you do if you were in my place? Tell me in the comments. We moved to a bench in front of the painting, and I found myself sitting closer to James than I normally would to a stranger. There was something about shared grief that collapsed usual social boundaries. Can I ask you something? I said. Sure. Do you think she would have wanted you to keep coming here? To keep questioning your decision? James was quiet for a long moment. I think she would have wanted me to forgive myself and move on. Sarah was always more generous than I deserved. But you haven't been able to do that? I haven't been able to do anything except go through the motions of living. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. This painting is the only place I've found where I feel anything real. What do you feel here? Connected to something larger than my own guilt and confusion. Like maybe beauty really can exist alongside pain, and maybe that's enough reason to keep going. I looked at this man who'd somehow articulated exactly what I'd been struggling with since my father's death, the question of how to find meaning in loss, how to keep believing in beauty when life felt brutally unfair. James, can I tell you something? Of course. I came to this museum today because I couldn't figure out how to keep writing. My father believed in my work, and without him believing in it, I started wondering if it was worth doing. What kind of writing? Poetry mostly. Some essays. The kind of work that doesn't pay bills, but feels necessary anyway. And being here helped? Being here with you helped. Hearing you talk about your wife, about coming here to feel connected to something real, it reminded me that art isn't just decoration. It's how we make sense of experiences that don't make sense. Like losing people we love? Like losing people we love. Like feeling guilty about choices we made or didn't make. Like trying to figure out how to honor the past while still building a future. James turned to look at me directly, and I felt something shift in the air between us. Elena, can I ask you something else? Sure. Would you like to get coffee with me? Somewhere we can continue this conversation without whispered museum voices. Are you asking me on a date? I'm asking if you'd like to spend more time talking with someone who understands what it's like to be processing grief in public places. Even though you're still married? Technically. Even though my life is complicated in ways that would take hours to explain properly. I looked at this man who'd somehow become essential to my afternoon, who'd helped me understand that my father's death didn't have to mean the end of my belief in beauty or meaning or the possibility of connection with other people. Coffee sounds good, I said. But James? Yeah, I need you to understand that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 25, I just lost my father, I'm questioning everything about my life and career, and I'm probably not in any shape to be anyone's rebound or transition person. I'm not looking for a rebound or a transition person. I'm looking for someone who sees the world the way you see it, like it's worth paying attention to, even when it's painful. And if paying attention leads to caring about each other, then we'll figure that out when it happens. But Elena, I need you to know something too. What? I haven't felt genuinely interested in another person since Sarah died. I haven't wanted to have real conversations or learn about someone's dreams or spend time with anyone who wasn't absolutely necessary to my daily survival. What changed? You did. Watching you respond to that painting, listening to you talk about your father and your writing, it reminded me that there are still people in the world worth knowing. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. The right kind of mess. The kind that comes from caring too much rather than not caring enough. We ended up at a small cafe in the Mission District, where we talked until the place closed around us. James told me about his work as a therapist, about how helping other people process trauma had been his way of avoiding his own emotional work. I told him about my struggles to write about grief without wallowing in it, about the pressure I felt to honor my father's memory while also building my own life. What are you working on now? He asked as we shared a piece of chocolate cake that neither of us was really eating. A series of poems about inheritance. Not money or property, but the emotional legacies we get from people we love. The way my father's belief in beauty shaped how I see the world, the way his courage to follow his dreams gave me permission to follow mine. That sounds beautiful. It's also terrifying. Writing about him means accepting that he's really gone, that I have to carry forward what he taught me without being able to ask him for guidance. What do you think he would tell you about that? He'd tell me that the point of guidance isn't to create dependence, it's to create independence. That if he did his job right, I should be able to make good choices even when he's not there to advise me. And do you think he did his job right? I think he did. Which makes his death sad but not tragic. He lived a full life, he loved well, he raised a daughter who can take care of herself. That's not nothing. That's everything. James drove me home that evening, and as we sat in front of my apartment building, I felt the familiar reluctance that comes with ending good conversations. "Elena," he said, "I want to see you again." I want that too. But I need you to understand that I don't know what I'm capable of offering someone right now. I'm still figuring out how to live without Sarah, still processing the guilt about our marriage ending the way it did. And I'm still figuring out how to live without my father, still learning what it means to be an adult without his guidance. Maybe we can figure things out together instead of separately. What would that look like? I don't know. But James, today you helped me understand something important about grief. What's that? That it doesn't have to be isolating. That sharing it with someone who understands can make it more bearable instead of more painful. You did the same thing for me. So maybe that's where we start. Two people who understand that love and loss are connected, that beauty and pain can coexist, that it's possible to honor the past while still being open to the future. Even if the future is uncertain? Especially if the future is uncertain. James reached over and touched my hand gently. "Elena, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'd like to keep getting to know you." Slowly, carefully, with room for both of us to keep processing our grief while also exploring whatever this connection is between us. And if it gets complicated, then we'll handle complicated together. But James, yeah, promise me that you'll keep going to look at that painting. Not because you're stuck in the past, but because it reminds you that beauty and love can survive even when the people we love can't. I promise. But only if you promise to keep writing. Your father was right, your work is worth doing, and the world needs your perspective on beauty and loss, and what it means to inherit love. I promise. 6 months later, I'm writing this from the apartment James and I now share, where we've learned that building a relationship while processing grief requires patience and honesty, and the willingness to let love be complicated. We visit that Monet painting together now, and it means something different to both of us, not just a reminder of loss, but a symbol of the way beauty can bring people together across their deepest pain. Before I go, thank you. These stories are real. They're mine. And I share one every day. If you want to hear more, subscribe. Sometimes the most important conversations happen when you're crying in museums. Sometimes love finds you when you're both looking at the same painting for completely different reasons. And sometimes the person who asks why you're crying becomes the person who helps you understand that tears can be about gratitude as much as grief.